Hello, Karunaji.
Hello, Sandeep ji.
I want to tell you something, but please promise me you're not gonna react.
Okay, I'll try.
You'll keep your promise, right?
I'll try. I cannot promise.
Okay, see, Satguru Mata Sudiksha ji Maharaj is going to be visiting USA very soon.
What? I can't believe this. Wow, such a wonderful news, Sandeep ji.
Yeah, it is wonderful. But you promise you won't react?
I was not reacting. I was responding. I couldn't control my happiness.
So let's figure out what is a reaction and what is a response.
Alright then, why don't we discuss this theme for our today's podcast?
Exactly. I think we can discuss about this and we can bring in some experts' opinion on this theme through our panelists, and surely they can help us figure out what exactly is a response, what is a reaction, and how do they impact us.
Okay then, let's not waste any more time.
I am Sandeep.
I am Karuna.
Namaskar.
Sant Nirankari.
Karunaji, often we stay calm and peaceful when things around us are normal. But the moment we get disturbed by external situations, we lose our cool.
That's right.
From a worldly perspective, reacting can be a natural and immediate response to a sudden or unexpected situation. On the other hand, responding involves taking the time to consider the situation and possible outcomes before taking action.
That is so true. Reaction is the game of emotions, and response is a well thought action.
You know, Karunaji, this reminded me of an incident that happened in my office. There was a situation where someone from the other team was supposed to share some information, but he didn't provide the same in time. When we conducted the meeting, one of the directors from that team yelled at me. Though I wasn't at fault and wasn't even responsible for that, I chose to keep my calm and not to argue. I suggested him to take it offline to keep the decorum of the meeting. This gave him chance to reflect and made him realize his mistake. We clarified the things later, and finally, we were able to resolve the issue and maintain a good rapport.
Wow.
Karunaji, we learn to have patience in the company of saints, which help us to cope up with these situations, and we are able to differentiate between react and respond.
You are right, Sandeep ji. Often we talk about patience, but it tests us in the time of stress. Patience is not only about the ability to remain calm in challenging circumstances, but it is also about having that farsightedness and the ability to see the potential outcomes without becoming frustrated or upset. And like you said, the company of saints does make a difference. In fact, it's a major influence which shapes our character, and that is how our personality is groomed. We are so fortunate and blessed to have that in our lives.
Absolutely.
Sandeep ji, there can be so many examples that we can learn from on this topic of response. So many things that we see and we don't realize, as there's a fine line between react and respond. However, the consequences, the implications can be so huge. I really want to share this with everyone. When Sadguru Baba Gurbachan Singh Ji Maharaj made a big sacrifice for the sake of humanity and love, during that phase of despair and distress, Sadguru Baba Hardev Singh Ji responded by diverting that swamp of emotions towards the love and the teachings. He clearly said that the only way we can respond to this is by spreading Sadguru Baba Gurbachan Singh Ji's message to every nook and corner of this world, by spreading the love that he wanted, by making sure that humanity is saved.
Hanji, what an incredible display of emotional control. Satguru Baba Hardev Singh Ji used to say this quote, "ये जब्र भी देखा है तारीख की नजरों ने, लम्हों ने खता की थी, सदियों ने सजा पाई." ये बहुत बड़ी बात है करुणा जी. इसने मिशन का ही नहीं, पूरी दुनिया का इतिहास ही बदल दिया. जैसे हम संपूर्ण हरदेव बाणी में भी पढ़ते हैं, जो इसके एहसास में जीता विवेक वाला होता है, संयम में रहता है वह जन, धीरज को ना खोता है।
बिल्कुल जी, सदगुरु बाबा हरदेव सिंह जी महाराज, he truly led by example.
Well said, Karunaji. Let's learn more from our panelists.
हाँ जी, our first panelist for today is Vivek ji, who's a software professional. दान अंकार जी, विवेक जी.
दान अंकार जी, करुणाजी.
What are your views on this topic of response versus reaction?
Karunaji, firstly, thank you for having me.
Let me share my experience, Karunaji. It so happened, one day, one of the saints reached out to me for some seva in another city which was like 250 miles away. I replied by saying, I'll try and think about it. But the first reaction that came to my mind was, no, I have a deployment over the weekend and I cannot go. After some time, you know what happened? I got a call from another saint to check my availability for the same seva. At that moment, I simply responded, Hanji, I will join you for the seva. Now that I have committed to this seva, I kept pondering about how would I join the seva while having to work on the weekend. Next morning, I received a message from my manager that the work got postponed by 1 week. I was surprised and excited by this news. But this compelled me to reflect too. I looked at this whole conundrum in a very different perspective. I noticed that my reaction to the second Mahapurush was, Hanji, I will join you for the seva, which simply translates into our learning in the satsang, that is, to respond with satvachan. And I realized, if we react from the perspective of Gurmat, then our immediate response is satvachan.
Thank you, Vivek ji, for giving us such a great insight, which is worth a life's experience. जहाँ गुरु की या गुरमत की बात आए, वहाँ हमें ज़्यादा नहीं सोचना चाहिए, क्योंकि गुरुमत के भाव में निकला सत्वचन हमारे लिए सुखदायी ही होता है. When we are connected with Nirankar, then our reactions can bring positive outcomes and be beneficial for ourselves and others.
Well said, Karunaji. When we respond with Satvachan, it enables us to act as Nirankar's conduit. Connecting with Nirankar is the only way. When we are connected with Nirankar, our reactions will also be pious and pure. And this comes only with practice. Just like Vivek ji said, Satvachan. Now before we go to our next panelist, let's enjoy this melodious song.
change to connect. I hope that we realize that one day a world without walls is what we need. And to make that change, believe in the power of one. Every corner of this universe, light prevail so miraculously. I hope that we realize that one day a world without walls is what we need. And to make that change, believe in the power of one.
That was a blissful piece. Now let's hear from Padmajaji, who works in finance. Sant Nirankari, Padmajaji.
Dhananka Sandeep ji, you know what I feel? From a spiritual perspective, reacting and responding are actions that can have consequences, both for ourselves and for others around us. However, the way in which we approach situations can have a profound impact on our spiritual growth and well being.
Exactly.
I think our emotional connection with loved ones can cause us to react quickly without thinking, as our emotions can easily be heightened. When a loved one opposes you in some situation, our instinct is often to react immediately, whereas at that point it's important to be empathetic towards the point of view of other person to help that person in true sense.
I agree, Padmajaji. I have seen the difference of opinions among kids and parents based on their beliefs and behaviors. Most of the time, kids expect a lot from their parents and they get reactive when their expectations don't get fulfilled.
Sandeep ji, you know what? I can relate to this situation. I am reminded of my own instance with my lovely son. For his homework, he needs to do online work, which is fine with me as long as he is engaged in learning. However, recently I have noticed that he has been spending more time on browsing and games rather than his academic work. I had tried a couple of times to convince him so as to lead him in the right direction, but it didn't work. Instead, he reacted and answered me back, which was highly surprising and unacceptable behavior. I immediately got upset and yelled at him. As a mother, I always try my best to ensure my son has the right direction since his childhood.
Oh, I see. Then how did you address it, Padmajaji?
Sandeep ji, after this incident, I was feeling guilty about my behavior and it wasn't appropriate. Then, after reflecting, I decided to approach in a better way, sat with him, understood his point of view. We came to an agreeable solution for managing time for his academic work and online gaming. This way, I was able to lead him in a right direction without antagonizing him. This specific experience taught me not to let my emotions lead my life, but instead, stay open-minded, recognize when my emotions are clouding reasoning. If we learn to sit back and observe, then I'm sure we can always come up with a response that leads to a positive outcome.
What a great example, Padmajaji. I think you brought up a hot topic which is very relevant to our discussion. How nicely you modeled the right attitude that brought the transformation in your kid. And this is a perfect instance that shows how empathy plays a big role in minimizing the gap between kids and parents.
I agree. Quite often, parents have good intentions for their kids, but they react in the moment without understanding the viewpoints of their children. I think spirituality helps us here in responding to difficult situations with ease.
जी बिल्कुल। जब हम इसके एहसास में रहते हैं, तब हमारी अवस्था भी सहज हो जाती है।
हाँ जी, our energy levels and state of mind plays a big role in our actions. Circumstances can trap us when we drift away from Nirankar, and connectivity is very important and is the universal human experience that touches all. For example, my response to my 2-year-old is different every day, depending on how my day goes. I realized that she picks up on my emotions and energy levels. Sometimes, changing just the words helps us to radiate positive energy and create positive vibes. You know, we should start instilling these values from a very young age. Recently, I learned in a conscious parenting class that usually when kids cry, we react by saying, "Stop that crying now." We shut them down without giving a second thought, but that creates a negative impact on their personality in the long run. We can rather choose to respond by saying, "You look upset. Do you need a hug, beta?" By saying this in that moment, we are not only preventing ourselves from setting a bad example for our kids, but also creating a positive environment where our kids feel loved and safe.
हाँ जी, responding thoughtfully and intentionally to our children's behavior can help to build stronger relationships and model healthy communication.
हाँ जी, as we also read in संपूर्ण हृदय वाणी, हर व्यवहार बड़ों का बच्चे ध्यान से देखा करते हैं, वहीं पे होती नजरें उनकी, बड़े जहां पग धरते हैं.
Even I have realized that when we are anxious or overwhelmed, we react. But when our mind is calm and in ehsas of Nirankar, responsible behavior becomes our habit and it reflects in our personality. Proactive people take charge of their emotions and do not blame the environment. We need to focus on what is in our hand. Like we often hear this phrase in Sangat, "Tu apni sambal, tenu hor naal ki, tu gatdi sambal, tenu chor naal ki." We react in anger, later we regret and realize that it wasn't even necessary.
हाँ जी, so true. Spirituality gives us the perspective of mindfulness that enables us to control our emotions, and instead of reacting, we respond with the perspective of Gyan. Now let's hear from our next panelist, Namrata ji, who's an entrepreneur.
Sant Nirankari Namrata ji, welcome to Soul Vibes.
Sant Nirankari ji, thank you for having me.
So, what experiences can you share with us today?
So, one of the most monumental experiences in my life was when I moved to Chicago from New York as a kid. I remember being so nervous before meeting a great saint. The way that my mom used to describe this saint was that he was a visionary. When I imagined the encounter, I assumed he would be a serious man. But when we met, I was stunned to see that he was in fact full of life and bubbling with more energy than any adult I had ever encountered. He had this way of meeting me where I was at. This caught me by surprise, and all I could think of was how he valued me enough as a person, even as an 8-year-old, to where my thoughts were heard despite all of the stature that was affiliated with his position, and he conversed with me as if we were best friends.
Yes, that was a great quality in him.
That is true. As a child, I know it mattered to me more than anything else just to feel heard. I do feel that this approach is very important, and it matters a lot when we're engaging with any person or situation. When it comes to react versus respond, a situation that often arises is when someone comes to tell us something, or often we immediately start giving advice. Sometimes listening to that person is more than enough. In this instance, as a child, when I was meeting this saint, I was able to feel heard because he didn't offer any ready solutions or advice, but rather he allowed me the platform to be myself. And through this, I definitely felt engaged. That feeling of someone acknowledging my spirit was powerful enough to stay with me all these years later. I learned that just listening and withholding the urge to immediately respond, it's a far better mechanism to build a meaningful dialogue than, offering suggestions and being quick to speak our advice and our opinion. Our intention might be to help, but the key is to listen first. Listening is the first response.
That's a great learning for everyone, Namrataji.
Hanji, oftentimes I'd say listening is more valuable overall as it allows the person to establish a common ground. I know it helped me to be intentional and thoughtful in life versus being reactive, which it's such a simplistic way of being. By having this approach in mind, I can connect to someone at the level that they're at, and this has always helped me in establishing powerful bonds.
You make a great point, Namrataji. We are so fortunate to have such people who have touched our lives with immense love and taught us how to live a life as per the teachings of Satguru. Sandeep ji, I'm loving our conversation today. We do need to inculcate the essence of react and respond in our day-to-day life from the perspective of Gurmat.
You are right, Karunaji. It is easier said than done. But we should never forget how blessed we are to have Satguru in our lives. सतगुरु माता सुदीक्षा जी ने हमेशा हमें इस निरंकार से जोड़ा है. When we stay in एहसास of निरंकार, we can never say or do anything that may hurt anyone. Think of it like being in constant surveillance and having this realization that I am being observed by Nirankar at all times. Moreover, we must always seek the company of saints, for they truly show us how to react with empathy and love for everyone. They show us how to live the life in Gurmat that is filled with virtues such as patience, humility, and tolerance. When we react from the perspective of Gyan, then our reactions are also within the boundaries of Gurmat.
That is so true. I always thought reaction was negative, but after this insightful discussion today, I learned that reaction is also a phenomena which is made by Nirankar. Just like if we touch a hot surface, our brain is wired to react as a safety net. There may be situations where reacting in the moment is necessary to ensure our safety or that of others. Ultimately, the key is to be mindful of our reactions and responses and to strive for a balance between the two. By becoming more aware of our own emotional triggers and patterns of behavior, we can learn to take a pause and apply the filter of Gurumat and then respond in a more thoughtful and intentional way while still allowing ourselves to react when necessary. Thank you to the listeners for joining us through this journey of react and respond. Thank you, Sadguru Mataji, for showering your blessings and giving us this opportunity to have this dialogue on Soul Vibes platform. Da Nirankar Ji.